What if I told you that the key to extraordinary leadership lies in a principle used by the U.S. Navy SEALs? It's a principle called extreme ownership, a concept explored and explained by retired SEAL officers Jocko Willink and Leif Babin in their book of the same name. They argue that this principle, which insists on absolute responsibility for all outcomes, is the cornerstone of effective leadership. In the world of leadership, there's no room for blame. Success or failure rests entirely on your shoulders. Extreme ownership is about taking 100% responsibility for everything that affects your domain and its outcomes. Imagine a leader standing at the helm of a ship amidst a turbulent sea. This leader doesn't just steer the vessel, he is accountable for the entire journey. The weather, the route, the crew's morale, the condition of the ship, everything. This is the essence of extreme ownership, a principle penned by retired SEAL officers Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. It's a leadership philosophy that implores you to take complete responsibility for every facet of your domain and its outcomes. Now, let's unpack this a bit. At its core, extreme ownership requires a leader to own every aspect that affects their mission, whether it's a business goal, a military operation, or a personal project. This includes the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. It's about acknowledging that you, as a leader, are the common denominator in all situations and outcomes. So, what does it look like in practice? Let's say a project fails or a team underperforms. A true practitioner of extreme ownership wouldn't point fingers or dwell on external factors. Instead, they would look inward, asking critical questions like, what could I have done differently? Or, how can I better equip my team for success? Perhaps a team member is struggling. Instead of dismissing them as a weak link, an extreme ownership leader would consider it their responsibility to mentor and train that individual, to lift them up to the level of the team. If there's confusion about the mission or the action plan, it's the leader's job to provide clarity and direction, to ensure everyone is on the same page and equipped to carry out their roles. But remember, extreme ownership isn't about self-flagellation or carrying the world on your shoulders. It's about understanding your role in shaping the world around you and taking proactive steps to influence outcomes in a positive way. So as we delve deeper into this principle, ask yourself, am I truly owning my role as a leader, or am I just going through the motions? Because at the end of the day, extreme ownership is not about carrying the world on your shoulders, it's about understanding your role in shaping the world around you. One of the biggest obstacles to extreme ownership is ego. It's that inner voice that keeps telling us we're above mistakes, we're beyond reproach, and we're always right. It's that voice that silences the whispers of feedback and turns a deaf ear to the loud screams of criticism. But let's be clear, ego isn't inherently bad. It's what drives ambition, fuels confidence, and inspires us to strive for greatness. But when ego becomes a barrier, a wall that separates us from our own shortcomings and areas of improvement, that's when it becomes detrimental to leadership. Imagine you're at the helm of a ship. As the captain, your role is to guide your crew and ensure the ship stays on course. But what happens when the ship starts veering off course? Do you blame the wind, the waves, or perhaps the crew? Or do you reassess your navigation, your decision-making, and your leadership? This is where ego becomes a hindrance. It prevents you from accepting that you, as the leader, may have made a mistake. It prevents you from taking extreme ownership of the situation. To overcome the ego barrier, leaders must learn to set their ego aside. They must accept that they are capable of making mistakes and that it's okay. They must be open to feedback and criticism, for these are the stepping stones to growth and improvement. They must be willing to make necessary changes, not just in strategies and plans, but also in their attitudes and behaviors. Remember, extreme ownership isn't about being perfect. It's about acknowledging imperfections and taking responsibility for them. It's about owning up to your mistakes and learning from them. It's about leading by example and showing your team that it's okay to make mistakes, as long as you learn and grow from them. So the next time you find yourself in a challenging situation, don't let your ego get in the way. Embrace criticism, make necessary changes, and show your team what true leadership looks like. When ego steps out of the way, true leadership steps in. Ever noticed how attitudes can be contagious? The same applies to extreme ownership. Just as a smile can be infectious, so too can a leader's mindset. When a leader embodies the principles of extreme ownership, it's as if they set off a chain reaction, influencing everyone in their orbit. This influence isn't necessarily forceful or overt, but rather a subtle shift, a ripple effect that changes the entire atmosphere of a team or an organization. Imagine a leader who, instead of pointing fingers when things go wrong, steps up and takes responsibility. This leader doesn't hide behind excuses or shy away from the harsh light of failure. Instead, they own their mistakes, learn from them, and use them as stepping stones to success. This leader isn't just accountable to themselves, but to their entire team. This is the essence of extreme ownership, and it's a potent force. When you, as a leader, demand this level of ownership from yourself, you become a mirror that reflects back to your team what is possible. Your actions speak louder than any motivational speech or team-building exercise ever could. Your team members start to see that blame games and excuses are not the path to success. They begin to understand that taking responsibility, even when it's uncomfortable or difficult, is the true mark of leadership. This is how they start to emulate you, to adopt the mindset of extreme ownership. It's not an overnight transformation, of course. It's a gradual shift, a slow but steady change in attitudes and behaviors. But over time, you'll start to see the impact. The team becomes more cohesive and efficient. Mistakes are no longer feared but seen as opportunities for growth. Accountability becomes the norm, not the exception. This is the power of a contagious attitude, the power of extreme ownership. It transforms not just the leader, but the entire team, the whole organization. It creates a culture where everyone steps up, takes responsibility, and strives for excellence. A leader who embraces extreme ownership doesn't just change themselves, they change the entire organization. Let's take a look at how extreme ownership can play out in real-life situations. Imagine an executive with a brilliant plan. His vision is clear, his strategy is solid, and his team is capable. But when the time comes to put the plan into action, it crumbles. The support from the board is non-existent, his staff is disengaged, and the market conditions are less than favorable. The executive is frustrated and ready to throw in the towel, but instead, he reaches out to Jocko Willink for advice. The executive starts by pointing fingers. He blames the board for their lack of support, his staff for their lack of commitment, and the market for its volatility. But Willink doesn't let him off the hook that easily. He reminds the executive about extreme ownership. The executive is the leader, and thus, everything that happens within his domain is his responsibility. So, the executive takes a step back. He swallows his pride and stops blaming others. He starts to look inward and asks himself, what could I have done differently to ensure the success of my plan? He realizes that he needed to engage his team more effectively, secure necessary resources from the board, and develop a strategy to tackle the market challenges. He starts to take action. He arranges a meeting with his team, clearly communicating the vision and the action plan, rallying them behind his cause. He then approaches the board again, this time with a more persuasive pitch, securing the resources required. Finally, he revises his strategy to better navigate through the market turbulence. In time, the situation starts to turn around. The plan that was once falling apart begins to take shape. The executive's leadership style is transformed. His team is engaged, the board is supportive, and they are all navigating the market challenges together. The executive learned a valuable lesson. He understood that taking extreme ownership doesn't mean blaming others for failures, but rather owning up to them and finding ways to improve. He realized that as a leader, he had to take full responsibility for everything within his domain and do whatever was necessary to ensure success. Extreme ownership isn't just a theory, it's a practical tool that can transform your leadership style and results. So, what have we learned about extreme ownership? Extreme ownership is more than just a concept. It's a way of life, a leadership style that demands 100% accountability, not just from your team, but most importantly from yourself. It's a principle championed by some of the highest performing teams in the world, like the US Navy SEALs, and has been proven to facilitate extraordinary results in all spheres of life and business. The essence of extreme ownership lies in the ability to set aside the ego, to take full responsibility when things go south, and to relentlessly seek ways to improve. It's about not pointing fingers or finding excuses, but reviewing what one must do differently to foster success. It's about mentoring, guiding, and equipping your team to perform their roles to the best of their abilities. We've also seen how this mindset can be contagious. When leaders embody extreme ownership, it inspires others to follow suit, creating a culture of accountability that can transform an entire organization. And finally, we've seen how Extreme ownership can be applied in real-life situations. It's not just about owning up to mistakes, it's about taking proactive steps to turn things around, securing resources, winning hearts and minds, and building clarity. Remember, in the realm of leadership, success starts with you. It's time to take extreme ownership. Thank you for watching. I am very grateful you watched this far. Please consider visiting our website and subscribe to our mailing list to stay up to date with what we are up to here at Meaningful Pursuits. Also, please follow us on social media. Links in the description.